And it's not always moving the leg itself. Sometimes it's the way our torso moves over the leg bones themselves. So, for example, with my golf clients, as they're going into their backswing and they're rotating here, they're going to take the hip girdle and move it in such a position that now this leg is going to be an internal rotation. Now, this is the backswing of a right-handed golfer. So now this leg is going to be an internal rotation. This one's going to be an external rotation. That's going to be indicative of how much room you have to rotate in that direction. And remember, the low back is not designed to rotate. So when you run out of rotation here, usually it's the low back or the knees that are going to try to take up the slack on there. So as we go into our downswing and we go through and finish, our front leg is going to end in internal rotation and our back leg in external rotation. Now you can extrapolate this to a lot of different sports, whether it be, as you can see, Matt's got a significant amount of internal rotation. He can probably go a little bit further than this, but we won't go there. So I'm going to take him back to neutral, and then I'm going to ask him to take himself into internal rotation under his own power. And I'm going to just support him and allow him to go that distance on his own. So now it's got pretty good active control of his internal rotation. Now, once again, I would be looking and observing and making sure his femur is doing what it's supposed to do and there's no extra coupling there. So we're going to ask you to do a self-assessment of yourself utilizing some of these strategies. Now, for external rotation, that's going the opposite direction. What I would do is I would take him into his external rotation. So I would take him here, it starts to tighten up. I'm looking for any coupling that goes on throughout the hips. I'm looking for any shifting. Okay, and then once I find his external rotation, I'll make note of that, usually take a photo of it. And then from here, I'll ask him to recreate that for me. And then bring it back. All right, so that's how we would assess internal and external rotation of the hips.
What's up? I'm Not a What, and welcome to your hip rotation assessment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit on a box and I'm going to back or anywhere, and I'm going to back myself up until the corner is on the crease of my knee, so that would naturally let my knee hang at bend at 90 degrees. I'm also going to sit nice and tall so that my hips are flexed to right about 90. If possible, you can even sort of back it up against the wall to keep that standard. So now I've got a block in between my knees because this helps me sort of be, keep ourselves in place, and we'll have an idea of whether or not we're deviating from this place, and it will help us standardize. Because if I check it again and I don't have something to mark, where my hip was in terms of what would be considered adduction or abduction, then we run into not having accurate data. So this is one for standardization, two to help us keep track here while we're actually doing the assessment itself. So you see that I've got my strap looped above my ankle, right? Because that takes one joint out of the equation, like RT3 says. And all I have to do now is, again, I sit nice and tall. I'm going to slowly bring my foot towards the ceiling, which takes my hip into internal rotation. I want my foot to be quiet as I pull. And I'm looking to see if I shift through my spine, what will happen is I will usually rotate my spine this way, or my sit bone will want to come way off the floor. Or you'll also notice like my shoulders. That's why I said it's a good idea to be on the wall, because as I'm pulling here, my shoulders stay on the wall. I don't feel increase in the pressure on either side. So I do that. The camera set up where you are. You now have a mark to see where your passive internal rotation is. And I'll let that go. I leave some slack, because now I'm just holding this for support now, and I'm not actually using this to pull me into the motion, because now I'm going to check what I have actively. I check passively, how far do I go? What's my potential? Now I will check active, how much of it can I use? So I will start to internally rotate my hip on my own, and then again, your camera will keep that, and I will slowly return. I'm looking for the same things. Do I rotate through here? Do I lean over to the side? Are my shoulders shifting? Because I want just this bone to spin inside of this joint, and that's all we're checking. And right now we're going to show you how to assess your hip for external rotation, both passively and actively. I have a strap. This does not have to be a strap. This can be a towel. This can be a belt. Belts often work very well. But if not, you can always pick one of these stretch straps up real cheap. So I'm going to lay down flat on my back. I'm going to make sure this leg is straight out from me. And like RT3 likes to say, this is a stake in the ground. So this is straight up and down. My hip is at 90. And I've got the strap tied or secured above my ankle. My hand is going to lightly rest on the top of my thigh here, and I'm going to start to pull myself into external rotation passively, and that's how much I have passively. When I'm checking this, remember, rotation is just this bone rotating this way. So that means that my knee doesn't go this way, my knee doesn't go that way, my knee doesn't come this way at all. I'm checking to make sure that my hips are not hiking, that my low back is not coming off the ground or doing any type of crazy stuff here as I try to check the rotation of this hip. And those are the things that we're going to be looking for when we check this rotation. Now, if I wanted to check the active portion, I would use the same thought process. You see there's very little slack in the line, and I've just got my fingertips on it. And I'm going to slowly start to externally rotate. This is really just for me to have some more feedback and understand where I'm at. Again, we're looking to make sure that we don't abduct when we do this, because that's abduction, and this is rotation. So this is rotation, this is abduction, and we want to make sure that we're not, and that's a finding if we do that when we want to rotate.
Upgrade your shit.